The emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am?
She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends.
How old is she?
11.
Okay, what's her name, ma'am?
Carlie, C-A-R-L-I-E.
And last name?
Brucia, B-R-U-C-I-A.
Let's talk about 60 seconds that destroyed everything. February 1st, 2004. 6:21 p.m. A motion sensor clicks on behind a car wash in Sarasota, Florida. The camera starts recording. A girl appears. 11 years old. Pink backpack. Red shirt. Walking home. Then, a shadow. A man steps into frame. Dark hair. Tattoos. Mechanic's uniform. He stops in front of her. They speak. Just a few words. Then he grabs her arm. And leads her away. 60 seconds. That's all it took. By the time the Super Bowl halftime show ended that night, Carlie Jane Brucia had vanished without a trace. And when detectives finally watched that footage, they knew they were racing against something far worse than time. This is the story of those 60 seconds. And the nightmare that followed. Let's rewind. Before the camera. Before the car wash. Before everything went dark. Carlie Jane Brucia was born March 16, 1992, on Long Island. Her parents, Joe and Susan, divorced when she was just a baby. Carlie moved with her mom to Sarasota, Florida, sunshine, beaches, a fresh start. But she never forgot her New York roots. Every winter, every summer, she'd fly back to Long Island to see family. She loved Christmas there. Snow. Lights. Her dad. Back in Florida, Susan remarried. Carlie got a little brother. A cat named Charlie. A normal life. Her teachers said she lit up every room. A shining light, her principal called her. She sang in the chorus. Played sports. Loved Jennifer Lopez. Spent weekends at the mall with friends. At McIntosh Middle School, everyone knew Carlie. The girl with the big hugs. The warm smile. 6th grade. 11 years old. A whole life ahead of her. But on February 1st, 2004, that life would collide with something unthinkable. And it would happen in broad daylight. Super Bowl Sunday. Nearly 90 million people tuned in. New England Patriots versus Carolina Panthers. Justin Timberlake. Janet Jackson. The halftime show everyone would talk about for years. In Sarasota, families gathered around TVs. Streets were quiet. Almost empty. Carlie had spent the night before at a friend's house. Sleepover. Giggles. Normalcy. Around 6:15 p.m., she decided to walk home. Just 1 mile. She wanted to watch the game with her family. Her friend's mom called Susan. Is it okay if Carlie walks alone? Susan hesitated. I don't want her walking down Bee Ridge Road. Too busy. I didn't give her permission. She told her husband, Stephen. He grabbed his keys. Jumped in the car. He drove the route. Once. Twice. 3 times. No Carlie. The streets were empty. Everyone was inside watching the game. Stephen's heart started pounding. Carlie always called. Always checked in. She didn't just disappear. At 7:15 p.m., the call went out. 911. My daughter is missing. Within an hour, police flooded the neighborhood. Knocking on doors. Calling friends. Searching yards. Carlie's friend said she'd seemed upset earlier. Her mom and stepdad had been arguing. She wanted to go home early. Be with her mom. But no one had seen her since she left. By 3 a.m., the search was called off for the night. No sign of her. The next morning, her classmates showed up to school hoping, praying, she'd be there. Her desk was empty. That's when they brought in the bloodhounds. A dog named Ruby picked up Carlie's scent from her pillowcase. She tracked it down Bee Ridge Road. Behind a car wash. and then the scent disappeared. Ruby sat down. End of the trail. The officers sealed off the area. And that's when they noticed the cameras. The car wash owner, Mike Evanoff, told them about the surveillance system. Motion activated. Multiple angles. They checked the first camera. Busy road. Empty parking lot. Nothing. Second camera. Different angle. Still nothing. Then they checked the camera at the back. 6:21 p.m. Motion detected. A girl appears. Pink backpack. Red shirt. Blue jeans. Carlie. Then, a man. 5'8". Dark hair. Tattoos. Mechanic's uniform. Name tag too blurry to read. He stops in front of her. They talk. Seconds. Then he grabs her arm. And leads her away. The footage was only a few seconds long. But it painted a nightmare. Carlie wasn't just missing. She'd been taken. And the clock was ticking. The video went public. Within hours, tips flooded in. Hundreds of calls. The community rallied. Volunteers searched parks, alleys, woods. Posters went up everywhere. Have you seen Carlie? The mayor called her Sarasota's child. They were not giving up. Carlie's mother, Susan, appeared at a press conference, voice breaking. Carlie, I love you. I have this phone on at all times. Please, help me bring my daughter home. Her father, Joe, added, Carlie, if you can hear this, your mom's waiting for you. But behind the scenes, detectives were running out of time. They went back to the footage. Rewound further. And that's when they saw it. 3 minutes before Carlie appeared. A car pulled into the lot. A pale yellow 1992 Buick Century station wagon. It drove down Bee Ridge Road. Braked. Turned into the car wash. Finally. A lead. But who was driving? February 3rd. 2 days since Carlie vanished. A woman was watching the news. She saw the footage. The mechanic. The walk. The way he moved. She turned to her husband. I know him. She'd worked with him. Recognized everything. The sneakers. The haircut. The way he reached for the girl. I've seen him pick up tools like that, she said. It's him. Her husband called the police. Gave them a name. An address. Detective Vincent Reaver and his team raced to the location. Unmarked car. 2 backup units. A neighbor confirmed someone was home. They knocked. No answer. They called the man's probation officer. Yes, he was on probation. Yes, he'd violated it before. No, he hadn't been sent back to jail. 45 minutes later, a woman arrived. His sister. She went inside. Came back out. And there he was. Standing in the doorway. Joseph Peter Smith. 37 years old. Father of 3. And a very, very long criminal record. Joseph Smith wasn't a stranger to law enforcement. 13 prior arrests. Heroin possession. Prescription fraud. Cocaine. Kidnapping and false imprisonment. Acquitted, but still. He'd spent 17 months in custody. 8 days after release? Arrested again. 3 years probation. Violated it. Caught passed out in a parking lot with a bag of cocaine. The system let him walk. And now he was standing in front of detectives. They asked him about February 1st. Where were you? Were you at the car wash? No, he said. They showed him the footage. That looks like me, but it's not me. They asked to search his car. His room. He agreed. Cooperative. Calm. In his room? Nothing linking him to Carlie. But they found a mechanic's uniform. Name tag on the front. In his car? Drug paraphernalia. Arrested. Probation violation. Drug possession. But here's the problem. Joseph drove a brown Lincoln. Not a yellow Buick. And the woman who owned the house where he rented a room, Naomi, she had an alibi for him. She said at 6:30 p.m. Joseph was on the phone with his estranged wife. Detectives were back at square one. Hours were slipping away. and Carlie was still missing. But then, Naomi's husband, Jeff, showed up at the station, driving a yellow Buick station wagon. He had something to say. "My wife got the times wrong." Jeff said Joseph had asked to borrow the car that evening. Around 6 p.m. Just 15 minutes, Joseph had said. Jeff agreed. At 6:30 p.m.? No car. At 7:30 p.m.? Joseph showed up, freshly showered, relaxed, like he had a wonderful night's sleep, Jeff said. Something was wrong. Jeff knew it. The back seat had been put down. Things had been moved. Jeff handed the Buick over to the police. And Joseph's alibi disappeared. Joseph was read his Miranda rights. He asked for an attorney. But while Joseph sat in silence, his family started talking. February 4th, Joseph's brother, John, walked into the FBI office. He'd seen the footage on the news. The face, the hair, the uniform, the walk. He knew. "That's my brother." John's girlfriend agreed. Joseph had back surgery years ago. His walk changed. She recognized it instantly. But here's where it gets darker. The night of February 1st, around 11 p.m., Joseph showed up at John's house. Under the influence. Acting strange. Wearing his usual mechanic's uniform, but not his usual shoes. He was wearing boots. Something he never wore. John didn't let him in. He'd creeped out his girlfriend's teenage daughter before. Joseph stood at the door. "You want to talk to me about something?" John said no. Shut the door. The next day at work, Joseph was washing his hands. Over and over. Even though they were clean. He told his boss he might need to leave the state. Suddenly. Any time. John told the FBI. "If it's him, you won't get it out of him. He'll die with that secret." February 5th. Joseph spoke to his brother and mother at the station. An hour and a half later, John walked out. He didn't say anything, John told officers. But that night, John called the FBI. "I guess you heard." The FBI was confused. Heard what? John thought his phone was tapped. It wasn't. Joseph had told him something. 3 FBI agents raced to John's house. And John gave them directions. 6221 Proctor Road. Near I-75. Behind the Central Church of Christ. At 1 a.m., in thick underbrush in a field, they found her. Carlie Brucia. Naked from the waist down. Deep ligature marks on her neck. She'd been strangled from behind. Dragged into the field. Left there. Joseph later confessed. He'd taken what he thought was cocaine. Said everything after was a blur. But the evidence told a different story. He'd sexually assaulted her, raped her, murdered her, then dumped her clothes in different bins across the city. It was Sheriff Bill Burwell who had to tell Susan. He knocked on her door. Broke the news. Susan screamed, "He killed my daughter. He murdered my baby." The community gathered at the church. Flowers, candles, tears. McIntosh Middle School opened its doors for grief counseling. Parents were terrified. They wouldn't let their daughters walk to the mailbox. A vigil was held outside Carlie's house. "We love you, Carlie," written on banners. Her father, Joe, thanked everyone who searched. Everyone who cared. But the pain was only beginning. Carlie's grandmother died shortly after. Some said from a broken heart. Her grandfather moved to Europe. Passed away there. Her uncle drove his truck into a tree. Some said it was intentional. Susan, Carlie's mother, turned to drugs to numb the agony. She was arrested. Sent to prison. Joseph Smith was charged with kidnapping, sexual battery, and first-degree murder. He faced the death penalty. At trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The footage from the car wash. NASA enhanced the image of the name tag. It said, Joe. The DNA. Joseph's DNA was found on Carlie's shirt. The chance of it matching someone else? 1 in 32 quintillion. 2 of Carlie's hairs were found in the Buick. 7 fibers from her red shirt matched fibers in the car. Joseph's brother John testified, though he was high on crack cocaine during parts of it. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. And then came sentencing. The jury voted 10-2 for execution. Joseph asked the judge to spare him for the sake of his family. But on March 15, 2005, Judge Andrew Owens sentenced him to death. Carlie endured unspeakable trauma. At 11 years of age, she was aware of her dire predicament and had little hope of survival. Her death was consciously and pitilessly calculated. Joseph Smith, you have forfeited your right to live freely among us. May God have mercy on your soul. But Joseph didn't die. He launched appeal after appeal. Joe Brucia was furious. He looked into Joseph's criminal history. Joseph was on parole. He violated it. They let him walk. That's why my daughter's not here today. Joe realized this wasn't just about Carlie. This was a nationwide problem. He contacted Representative Katherine Harris. Together, they introduced Carlie's Law. The law aimed to send federal felons back to custody if they committed another violent offense or crime against a child under 16. It would also extend Amber Alert grants. But the law faced pushback. Cost concerns. Nearly $1 billion to implement. Joe said, "I find it offensive that they say it costs too much money. No one has the right to put a price on my daughter's head." Carlie's Law never passed, and the legal battles continued. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Florida's death penalty law unconstitutional. Juries had to be unanimous. Joseph's sentence was dropped, then reinstated, then dropped again in 2018, reinstated in 2020, then in 2021, the Florida Supreme Court ordered a new sentencing hearing. Joe Brucia said, "The system has failed us. They dragged this from 2005 to 2021 and it's still not done. I have a lot of venom and disdain for the criminal justice system." But before the new hearing could happen, something else occurred. In 2010, Bradenton police confirmed Joseph Smith was also a suspect in another case. The murder of 25-year-old Tara Riley. March 2000. Tara's naked body was found in a retention pond behind a Walmart. She'd been seen arguing with someone in a parking lot. The case went cold. But in a recorded prison phone call, Joseph's family brought up Tara's name. Did they ask about Tara? His mother asked. Joseph's brother John knew Tara. They'd worked together. John said Tara had turned Joseph down. Humiliated him. "I hope they solve this murder before my brother dies," John said. "I believe he did it." But Joseph was never charged. And on July 26, 2021, Joseph Peter Smith died in prison. Liver cancer. Or hepatitis C, reports conflicted. He was 55 years old. Tara Riley's case remains unsolved. And the truth about Joseph's other crimes died with him. Joe Brucia said he felt wonderful when he heard Joseph died. It's long overdue. The justice system couldn't get it done. So the natural order of things finally took care of it. The Florida State Attorney's Office released a statement. "While nothing can bring back Carlie, we are grateful that her family and the entire Sarasota community will finally have closure and will not have to endure any further court proceedings." Today, a memorial garden stands behind the Central Church of Christ, where Carlie was found. For years, volunteers maintained it. Flowers, plaques, a place to remember. But over time, it became neglected, vandalized, forgotten. In recent years, Carlie's family and friends have worked to restore it. "I want her legacy to live on," one volunteer said. "I want parents to bring their kids here, to teach them what can happen." On February 1, 2014, 10 years after Carlie's death, the community gathered again. Her stepfather, Stephen, spoke. Her mother, Susan, too emotional to say anything, stood silently. Hopefully it made kids aware. Adults aware, Stephen said. You never think it'll happen in your backyard. Sheriff Bill Burwell, who had to deliver the worst news to Susan, attended the memorial. For something like this to happen to her, I think it's probably our worst nightmare. But it also gave us that sense of vigilance. And that's what drove us all together to try to bring him to justice. The church has sponsored 8 kid safety rallies since Carlie's death. We're going to keep Carlie's memory alive, Pastor Rod Myers said. This will always be a place in this community where you can come, where you can remember, and where you can recommit yourself to taking care of the kids in our community. In 2020, Susan Shippen passed away. She was 47. The grief never left her. The drugs, the pain, the loss. Pastor Rod Myers of the Central Church of Christ remembered her. Susan was a very dedicated mother. She loved her daughter very much. He recalled one encounter vividly. Susan and I and Sheriff Burwell came out and we had a prayer near where Carlie was found. And that was a very meaningful time to me. Susan had tried to numb the agony of losing Carlie with drugs. She'd been arrested, sent to prison, but she never stopped loving her daughter. And she never stopped grieving. The ripple effect of Carlie's murder was devastating. Her grandmother died shortly after. Some said from a broken heart. Her grandfather left the United States, moved to Europe, passed away there. Her uncle drove his truck into a tree. Some said it was intentional. And Susan, lost to drugs and grief. Joe Brucia, Carlie's father, has carried the weight of this loss for nearly 2 decades. My family and we talk about her. We have photos of her all around the house. She's in our hearts and minds all the time. He's never stopped fighting for justice. Never stopped advocating for Carlie's law. Never stopped trying to make sure no other parent has to go through what he did. Here's what stays with me. Carlie was walking home in broad daylight. On the busiest TV day of the year. People were less than 300 feet away. And no one saw. No one heard. Joseph Smith was on probation. He'd violated it. Multiple times. The system let him walk. And here's the question no one can answer. How many others were there? Tara Riley's case is still unsolved. Joseph's brother believed he killed her. Were there more? Joseph's brother John said, he never truly confessed. Not about Carlie. And definitely not about Tara. He died a coward. We'll never know. Joseph died with his secrets. Carlie's case changed how we think about child safety. It changed how surveillance footage is used in investigations. It changed how quickly law enforcement can mobilize when a child goes missing. But it didn't change the system that let Joseph Smith walk free. Joe Brucia said it best. I feel so let down by the system. Joseph Smith was on parole before he got to my daughter. He violated it. They said he'd go back to jail for 5 years. Instead, they gave him drug offender probation. That's why my daughter's not here today. Carlie's law was supposed to change that. It was supposed to close the gaps. But it never passed. And families like the Brucias are still waiting for justice. Carlie Jane Brucia was just 11 years old. She loved her cat Charlie. She loved Jennifer Lopez. She loved going to the mall with her friends. She sang in the chorus. She gave the biggest hugs. She had the warmest smile. Her teachers called her a shining light. Her principal said she was lovely and delightful. Her father said she was someone who loved life. And in 60 seconds that life was stolen. But her memory lives on. In the garden behind that church. In the parents who hold their children a little tighter. In the investigators who never stop searching. In the community that refuses to forget. If this story shook you, if it made you think twice about the system we trust to protect our children, then check out the video on your screen now. I believe it was made for you.